I'm a parent, a husband, a brother, and a son. But otherwise, I spend a great deal of effort, energy, and thought on trying to create art, thinking of ideas, working hard to bring them into being. It's hard to explain, but you know, when a 6-year-old comes up to you and says, you know, I love your work, or I think you're a great artist, or I want to be an artist when I grow up. It is cute, but it's profound and sublime to have some person or child say that to you. You know, it makes you want to work harder and live up to that. And so I guess that's what I'm trying to do. Well, today we had a very special day in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. We visited Croman Elementary School, and that school has kindergarten, first and second grade. Theresa Morgan invited me to present my art to the students, and we had an assembly in the gym, which was great. I had a chance to show a selection of slides of my artwork to the kids and tell them about my life and how and why I started making art, and showing them examples of the art I've been making since I first started. And then it seems like all the kids in the school were making collages using cereal boxes they had collected and doing different art projects in their rooms. It was like a special art day at the school. I went class to class and stopped in and saw what the kids were working on, and they all wanted to tell me things about their projects and show me what they had done. And we took some group class photos, and it was just an amazing experience. So we're gonna all cut up our boxes and make a collage, but I have this saying, no gluing until you know what you're doing. Do you do art at home?
Yeah, sometimes.
Have you ever cut up cereal boxes before?
No.
Well, you're doing this in your own order because you made his mouth over his nose.
Yeah.
You inspired me because you spit it out everywhere.
It's interesting that you could, even though it's all mixed up, you can still tell it's Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Well, you did a great job. Do you love these guys? They're funny, aren't they?
My favorite one is the
Why?
because it has artists that are eyes and it reminds me of my mom.
Oh, that is nice.
I think that Michael Albert's presentation was one of the best presentations we've had this year. The children were very attentive. They listened, they cooperated, they added their comments to the slideshow, and I just think it was a wonderful day for all.
It was awesome to have a real artist come to our school today. The children really enjoyed making pop art like Mr. Albert, and they realized that they can do whatever they want, and art is just what you want to make it. The children were very excited. They all brought in cereal boxes.
It's an amazing opportunity for our students here. We live in a rural area where art is viewed, but something like this, something so modern and new and fresh, we don't always get to see. Michael's gracious enough to come out here to our rural Bradford County and visit our school and demonstrate to our kids really the amazing things that he does on a daily basis by cutting out boxes and gluing them to paper and really demonstrating art can be anything and allow the imagination to flow from these students. And his kind words of wisdom has really helped these students grow and imagine what they could be and what careers they could do in the future. And it's neat. It's just out of a cereal box.
The kids prepared ahead of time by making their names using some cereal boxes, and we put those up in the hallway. And they really enjoyed learning about his process and how he makes art out of recycled material so that it doesn't end up in the trash.
There's some good early literacy going on here, you know, finding the letters to spell out their names. Not the easiest thing to do. Do you think it's interesting that even though these packages have been cut up into so many little pieces and mixed up, that you could still guess what the products are? I hope you're going to be ready to start doing some cutting and pasting today, are you? Whenever I find a product that says what year the company was founded, I take it to include it in this big collage, which is going to be like a history of brands. This is about 4 hours drive from where I live, so to have a chance to come to a different community and interact with people in this way, not just the students, but the teachers as well. It's just a real honor to have people interested in what I do, especially kids so young, to get a short introduction, and the next thing you know, they're making art very much in the same way that I do. Looking at the images on packages, cutting them out, and coming up with their own ideas, and having a good, creative, educational time, which is really what it's all about. Well, I could go on, but I think we're going to need to get back to class and start on our projects. So these are some examples of my work. You guys were amazing. You guys were the best audience. Thanks so much for having me at your school.
When I first met Michael Albert, it was at the Green Free Library in Canton. They were just having special guests, and he happened to be one of the feature artists they were having that summer. So we went and created art, and then my kids and I decided we wanted to do it at home too. And then here and there, I sent him an email maybe or something, and then through COVID, we Zoomed and did art together, and our family did a lot of art.
We became Facebook friends.
Yes, Facebook friends, of course, Facebook. And who knew that all of that would bring us to this point where he could come to W.R. Croman and show his pop art presentation and where he's been in life, and bring it to our students and let them have a part of it. And to watch the kids just be so absorbed and involved in your pop art has to be so cool. It is for me, so it has to be for the artists too.
Today was amazing. It was perfect. You really arranged a perfect day. It couldn't have been better. I was a little nervous because the students were kindergarten, first and second, so you think, they might not get some of the deeper nuances of my work and story, but really, I think it's important to talk to even young kids like they're people.
Yeah.
We're all just people, so when I tell them about my brothers and my things that I like to do growing up and how I started drawing, these are the same kind of experiences and things that they understand because they're that age now.
Yeah, I think that helps them relate.
And I think the best thing about it for me is that I don't have to study for this. It's just me. It's just my
natural,
story.
yeah.
It's like somebody asking you about your life or what you do or what you think. It's not like you have to prepare for it, really. Even with the younger ones, when you have images that you're showing to them, it takes them a moment to look at it and figure out what it is, so that grabs their attention.
It becomes a game, and they like that, and you let them clap, and you let them answer questions, and it was just cool.
But our friendship is what made this happen. And I so appreciate it. It was great.
Yes, and I appreciate it so much. God has definitely brought us together. It's cool. Thank you so much.
Sure. I never imagined my art was going to turn into this opportunity of traveling around to different communities and interacting with people like this. But it's very inspiring, and I guess it's positive reinforcement that what I'm doing is working. People are enjoying it, I'm enjoying it, and it inspires me to keep going. The idea that I met the Morgan family at one of my library programs 7 or 8 years ago, our friendship has developed. I think first we became Facebook friends. Then I was invited back this past summer to do my summer reading pop art program at their local library. Theresa, I guess, spoke to the local librarians and got 3 different branches of the libraries in this county to bring me back. So we had one special program at the Green Free Library in Canton where the whole Morgan family showed up, and I found out that Johnathan is a filmmaker, and he did a segment for the local news channel, and I thought that was great, and that he works with his sister, which was so cool. So we came up with this idea for me to come out here and spend an evening at his grandparents' house, at Theresa's in-laws' house. Well, you've inspired me, and I'm so happy to be here and to know the Morgan family. I'm always reminded of something every time I communicate with you. So that's what inspired me to make you this gift, and I had it framed. This is it, and here it is.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, I love it.
So this is the Bible verse that she has on her email. I've added it to my collection of religious studies on my Pinterest, but it's in the collection of Theresa and Kevin Morgan.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I love it.
is very unusual, by the way. I have never gone and hung out at the home of people I've met at a library like this. We had dinner together last night, and after dinner we cleared the tables and we all made art together in the kitchen, and it was just sort of a very relaxing experience where we kind of just hung out with each other and talked, and we were all making art together. And then I stayed over, which is very special. You know, you meet people and you have conversations, but you know, this was really a way to get to know people better. Do you see my glue bottle? I love that.
I love it. So that just grows from your...
Yeah, as I keep working on it, and at some point it could come off.
You should like take a picture of that and just frame that.
I have a box on my main desk in my studio filled with chunks of glue. But it's never gotten to this point, actually.
That's amazing.
And it almost is like reaching the table. If it got any more on it, then it would like be tilting it. In my fantasy, when I'm a world famous, you know, global artist, people are gonna like, this is a chunk of glue from Michael Albert's glue bottle. It's gonna be priceless.
For $1 million on eBay.
Yes.
Speaking of getting rich and famous, or at least famous,
Yeah.
I'll make a sign and put in our bedroom, Michael Albert slept here.
That is so funny. It's a big effort to drive 4 hours each way to do this, but this is the way that you have interesting experiences, by making effort and making real connections with people. Even in art, part of it is about the person and their life and their story. But if the art is not something interesting and meaningful and beautiful, then the story doesn't really matter. Like Van Gogh's story is so interesting,
Yep.
but I think that it wouldn't really matter if his art wasn't great.
Right. I love that. That is cool.
That's like the my modern pop version of the Home Sweet Home needlepoint. You have to all figure out who's who. 4/11/24. This was my grandfather's birthday.
Oh yeah? It's my grandmother's birthday.
Really? One of the teachers said to me, you know, you never know that one of these kids might, you know, be inspired by this experience to want to be an artist in some way in their life. And I was telling her the story about when I saw a lecture. David Hockney was giving a lecture at the Metropolitan Museum of Art when I was in college, and I was invited to attend that lecture, and at the time I was at NYU studying business, so the concept of art as a career was not in my mind at all. But I do vividly recall sitting there and listening to him talk about his work and showing some slides of the things he was creating and talking about his process. And I never thought that this could be a career, you know, that this was something that somebody could do. I did like art, and there were certain artists that I really loved, but I really never was able to think about it in terms of how, you know, this might be something that I could do. You know, and still I have to spend time doing other things to help make it all happen. But more and more I'm making art, sharing my art with people, having exhibitions, and doing these types of events where I tell my story, show examples of my work, and then lead these workshops where everybody has a chance to create themselves. And I feel very fortunate that I can do this. Maybe the goal of it should be to let people know that this is something that's possible. I think the real message is that we can come up with an idea of something we want to do and then work really hard to make it happen. Somebody might not realize how long and hard you have to work to make a dream happen, but I feel like it's a lifetime goal. And the reason that it's real is because it is my life. It's what I do. It's how I spend my time. It's not a hobby, you know. It's a real huge part of my life. Besides visiting schools in the summer, over the last 15 years I have developed this traveling program I call the Modern Pop Art Experience, which I have been taken to libraries. Once my book was published, An Artist's America, I found that it ended up in a good number of library collections. I never realized that my book would end up in public libraries, and that is a really great honor for me. I also found that libraries have summer reading programs, and that every community in the country country has libraries. So, there's an evolution to it all, but I started visiting libraries, museums, art festivals, art fairs, art centers with this workshop. And it's basically a more shorter version of what I did today at the school, where I give a short talk, show examples of my work, provide materials so everybody could make their own collage in a hands-on art-making environment. And then I give everybody posters. At this point now, which is spring 2024, I've done my art program in either a school, a library, a museum, or an art fair in 43 of the US states. I've also done my program in Canada and in Europe. I've gone to Europe 5 times and I've gone to Canada 3 times now. But I've done 43 states and my goal is to do all 50. Next month I'm starting my summer pop art reading tour, and I'm gonna hit 5 states which I have not done. So I made a really huge effort over the winter calling places. Some places I had been in touch with in the past. It's a big road trip to go out to the west, so I had to really plan a tour. I can't just pop on over to California and do one show. I'm really excited. I'm gonna be going to the desert in Arizona and New Mexico. I'm gonna be going to Los Angeles, California, Southern Nevada. I'm gonna be in Colorado, all throughout the state, in the mountains, on the plains. I even got a couple gigs in Utah, Wyoming. I think I'm gonna be doing somewhere between 75 and 90. I'm still waiting to finalize my schedule, but getting to see the country in this way, not just traveling to different places, but when I get there, having a room full of people who I get to share my story with and show them some suggested ideas for their project. And then I keep finding myself in rooms full of people who are totally in the creative zone, trying to make their own artwork. I have my CD and cassette player that still works, and I play my music that I like, try to recreate the way that I make art in my own studio. And then I offer all the participants a poster. So it's kind of like this Johnny Appleseed approach, where I have this experience with people, and not only do they get to meet me and learn my story and see examples of my work, but they get to actually do the same project that I do to create my pieces. So they see exactly what the process is. And they not only leave with something they've made, but they leave with one of my prints, which they've started to end up in schools, libraries, businesses, people's homes, dorm rooms. And, it's become my way of getting my work out into the world. And it seems to be working. I try to come up with a new idea that I could then do an unlimited amount of variations on that theme, but that it all is brought back to the original idea. For example, the Frosted Flakes box. Cutting up a cereal box and putting it back together was the original idea. Then I've done over 700 original cereal boxes in the same way, but it really goes back to that initial idea. Are you ready to see the first cereal box ever? What? I thought it was so interesting that even though the Frosted Flakes box was cut into so many little pieces, that you can still tell that it's a Frosted Flakes box. Can you? Yeah. Even if I cut it up in a different way, it's still the idea of cutting up the cover of a product into pieces and reworking that image. Oh, he has a better idea for me. He said I could just cut it up any way I want. True. The map of the USA was another breakthrough idea for me. It was inspired by the United States map painting by Jasper Johns. He made a beautiful painting that's almost an abstract painting of the map of the USA, but it's colors, and some of the names of some of the states, I believe, are stenciled. Handwriting, I think, was too personal for him. My letters are also, not my own handwriting, so I guess in that regard it's similar. But I had been making collages using letters and spelling out messages, things like the Gettysburg Address and other famous speeches and text. And then I just had this flash when I was looking at a map that the names of all the places on the map are geographically where they are. While I was making it, I really realized that this was one of my best ideas, and it was really starting to look really cool, I thought. And I actually laid down most of the pieces before I glued anything down. So we have 2 cats, and one of my main goals is to keep my cats away from my work. You know, if anybody who has cats know that they know what you're about to do and they plop themselves down there. I think I put over 100 hours into it. And then since I've made the US map, I've done probably another 20 maps. I've done 2 other versions of the United States. I've done a few states, a few counties, a few towns, and then I did the map of the world, which I did in 2020 during COVID. I always wanted to do the map of the world, but it was a very daunting project because spelling out every country in the world I knew was going to take a long time. Putting things into the composition, you know, hiding little secret messages makes it more interactive. You know, I was inspired by the caricature drawings of Al Hirschfeld, who was the New York Times cartoonist. You know, he would do amazing caricatures of famous celebrities with black ink. And the thing about his work is that he would put his daughter's name, Nina, in his work. Whenever he signed his name, there was always a number next to it, which indicated how many Ninas were in the composition. So if it said Al Hirschfeld 3, you would have to look very closely at the drawing and find them. And one of them might be in the person's hair, one of them might be on the pattern of their shirt, another might be somewhere in the wrinkles of or their beard or somewhere. Once people knew that, whenever they'd look at an Al Hirschfeld, besides seeing the likeness to the celebrity that he was drawing, they would look for the Ninas. And so that's how I started putting my MAs in my work, and now people that know my work know to try to find it. And sometimes I do make it very difficult to find, because that's more fun. A lot of my work, people just look at it and they don't know the thought behind it. And when I tell them, they seem to, you know, or I point things out on my posters, or I point things out on different examples of my work, they're like, you really need to have something, you know, do you have this written down? I'd love to get closer to this one poster. This is my original Frosted Flakes collage. This was the first collage I ever made using a cereal box. It was created on March 30th, 1996, and it really was my main breakthrough, I believe, as an artist so far, because it was the first artwork I made using a consumer brand package as my material. And this was the first series, this idea of deconstructing the cover of a brand, but it led to literally thousands of collages in all different themes using consumer brand packaging, cardboard boxes, as my material. I call it now the birth of serialism, because after I first made this, I loved it so much that I started cutting up the covers of many other cereal boxes and ended up doing a series of over 700 original cereal box. Now I call them cereal box deconstructions. And I did many versions of the same box. I was very inspired by the Impressionist artist Claude Monet. One of the things that he did, which I'm not sure if anybody did before him, is he would do 20 or 30 paintings of the same scene or the same thing. For example, he had a studio, I believe, on the second floor of a building that overlooked the facade of the Rouen Cathedral in France, and he did about 25 paintings of that facade. And they're all different colors because they were done at different times of the year and different times of the day. And I think he might have even had multiple of them on easels. And as the light changed during the day, he would move from canvas to canvas. He did that also with haystacks. He did that with the Japanese footbridge, water lilies. I think he might have done it with poplars. Even though it's not Impressionist art or oil painting, I have done 50 different versions of the Frosted Flakes box, and each one is cut up in a different way, you know, different shapes. Also, as time goes by, the boxes change. Even the character is different now than it was then. It's more computer generated. This is more hand done, I think. The logo of Kellogg's has changed, and the color scheme is still similar. You could still look at them and know those are the colors of Frosted Flakes. Maybe it sounds ridiculous to compare my cereal box collages to Monet's Impressionist art, but you know, doing 50 versions of the Frosted Flakes box, I did 75 versions of the Cheerio box, probably 30 Captain Crunch, 25, 30 Rice Krispie boxes. There's certain brands that I kept doing many versions of. One time in 1998, I spent weeks doing nothing but Cheerio boxes. I think I did like 12 of them in a row. One day I'd love to have an exhibition at a museum where I have a room full of my 75 original Cheerio boxes, because I think they would look so cool together. You know, to me that's the ultimate brand. It kind of represents the whole life cycle, because it's one of the only foods I could think of that you give babies as a first finger food and that adults keep eating the rest of their life. The story of this particular Frosted Flakes box, since it had such a profound effect on my life, was that up until that point, I had been making art for almost 10 years. I started drawing, and then eventually I started making collages using different materials I had at home and at my office that I didn't need anymore. Stickers, labels, sell sheets, junk mail, photographs. And so I was in this practice of taking things and rather than throwing them away, using them in my work. That's not a new concept. I mean, many artists have used found objects. Picasso, I think, made the first collages and using pieces of newspaper and wallpaper incorporated with his drawings and paintings, and those are more mixed media. What I call a pure collage is that the entire image is made from cut pieces. There is no other media being used. So to me, a pure collage is an image that's 100% cut and pasted pieces. At this time, I had an office in New Jersey. I was running my natural food business, and my cousin was helping me out, and I drove him home one afternoon and went to go say hello to my Aunt Jean, my mom's younger sister, and she at the time, her kitchen had a lot of garbage in it. You know, she told me that the carting company was on strike, and could I please take some of this garbage? She tried to give me this box that had a raw chicken in it. And so it had like butcher paper along the bottom and it had like chicken fat on it, I remember. And I said, you know what, no, I'm not gonna take that. But I saw this Frosted Flakes box and I said, you know what, I'll take this. So I took, it was an empty Frosted Flakes box and it had like the empty bag. And I took that and I said, gotta go. Gave her a nice kiss and a hug and said goodbye. And I went back to my office to keep working. And I used to make art at my office a lot then, because I lived in New York City, but I had more space in my office, and it was my office, it was my company, so I could stay after hours and work. And so I went back to my office and I brought this Frosted Flakes box, and I don't know what it was. I don't know why I didn't throw it in the dumpster. I think I passed, 4 dumpsters on my way. I guess I just thought to myself, this is a cool, classic, iconic thing. I didn't make this collage right away. I put it on the floor. But a few weeks later, March 30th, 1996, I noticed the Frosted Flakes box on the floor. I had one of these leftover pieces of cardboard, which was the back of a writing pad I had just finished using. I don't know why I chose to cut the cover off the box and not the rest of the box, but I cut the cover off the box, cut it up into pieces, and glued it down onto this cardboard. And this was it. I tacked it up on my wall. I didn't put holes in it, but I put tacks around it to hold it up. Once I started doing other cereal box collages, I guess I realized, or I thought I had hit on some great new idea, and spent the next 3 years cutting up cereal boxes almost every day. All of my collages are mosaic. My pieces never overlap. So if you look very closely at my work, you'll see they're all next to each other, and there was something therapeutic about binding pieces that fit right into the little spaces. And there is some negative space still, but I guess it was up to the artist to determine when it was finished. Some of them that I've done have a lot less negative space than others. And I've also done them like this is on a piece of brown cardboard. I started doing them on white cardboard, black. I used to do a lot of Cheerio boxes on a black board because it looked really cool. It was a happy mistake, accident that changed the course of my life. I mean, I don't think I could be traveling around the world teaching what I do if the material that I use wasn't something that was so abundant and free and relevant to everybody's everyday life. So it was a magical moment for me, and this is it. Birth of Serialism. This print is the actual size of the original. As you could see, it's got probably a couple of thousand letters of all different fonts from different consumer brand packages, and I have spelled out the names of all 50 states, capitals, other cities. It's got the Atlantic Ocean down one end, the Pacific Ocean down the other end, all the provinces of Canada across the top, and Mexico and some of the islands down along the bottom. So it's really, maybe it's more North America than just the United States. It has 4 American flags hidden within the composition. Should I show them to you? I can show you one, let's see. Right here near Gettysburg is one, but there's 3 others. You'll have to find them yourself. At the bottom where Florida is, I put a recycling logo, which is supposed to represent the hurricanes. Also, I put Woodmere here in New York, which is the town that I grew up in. I was teaching at a school in Woodmere, and I had sent one of these posters to the school in advance of my visit. And the students were all looking and noticing, you know, all the states and the capitals. And then they saw Woodmere, and they were like, why is Woodmere on here? And then they said, because that's where he's from, right down the street from the school. It's a lot going on here, but there's something balanced about it, you know, and it was really the fruition of an idea. And of course, one of the things with art is that you never know what the finished product is going to look like until it's finished. I know I made a few misspellings on it. This piece was hanging in the Boston Children's Museum for 2 years, and no one noticed that I spelled Massachusetts wrong. It's Massachusetts, but I put an extra E in the end, so I guess nobody looked too closely at it. But that was embarrassing for me. I also spelled Cincinnati wrong. There's 2 N's and then 1 N, but the way that it really goes is that there's 1 N and then 2 N's. Once there was a teenager who had autism, and I had given him a copy of my poster, and he was so excited about it, and he told me he was sure that there were 6 spelling errors, and gave his mother my card, and lo and behold, she called me and found 6 spelling errors. One of them was Kodiak Island in Alaska. It's Kodiak with a K at the end, not a C. So I guess you can call that artistic license, or just bad spelling, either way. Finally, my initials, MA, are in here. That's the way I sign my work. You could see over here, Maine, there's an MA for Maine, but that's not the MA. One of the letters in my initials, MA, are not part of an actual word. So that's the one clue I could give people. Do you want me to show you where my initials are? Okay. So actually, as you see the provinces of Canada across the top, British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Newfoundland, and New Brunswick. Alberta, without the A, is Albert, which is my last name. So I put an M next to the Alberta. So this is the MA, that's where my signature is. So that M is the only letter on the entire collage that's not actually part of another word. And I put the Nabisco logo in the corner, which is something that has become something of a signature thing for me. In not all, but in a lot of my collages, I'll put the Nabisco logo in the corner, almost like art is a product, you know? So it's sort of like a logo, but it just looks good. Artists come up with their own signature things that they do for their own reasons. So I'm not sure the exact reason why I do that, but I guess I do it because it's fun and silly. Anyway, that's my map of the United States. I made it in 2008. In any case, you never know what the end result of all this is going to be, but if you can enjoy what you do on a daily basis, if you could say, I spent the day doing something that I'm glad I got to do, I think you're ahead of the game. So, thank you.